The space station hung in the darkness like a giant wheel, turning slowly against the stars. Inside, thousands of aliens from across the galaxy walked through halls made of metal and light. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like walking clouds of gas. Among them, one human walked alone. Ho looked ordinary. He wore a simple gray suit and carried a small data pad. His black hair was neat, and his face showed no emotion. Other aliens passed him without a second look. To them, he was just another diplomat from Earth, that small blue planet that had joined the galactic community only 50 years ago. The Galactic Council Station was hosting its yearly gathering. Leaders from 1,000 worlds came here to talk about trade, wars, and alliances. Ho walked through the crowd toward the main hall. His shoes made soft sounds on the metal floor. "Sir, wait," a voice called behind him. He turned. A young woman hurried toward him, also human. Her name was, and she was his aide. Her eyes looked worried. "They are here," she said quietly. "Princess arrived an hour ago with her fleet, 20 warships." Ho nodded slowly. "I see. That's more ships than necessary for a peace conference." "She's making a statement," said, "showing power. The other ambassadors are nervous." They walked together into the great hall. The room was enormous, with a ceiling so high it seemed to touch the sky. A round table sat in the center, big enough for 50 beings. Flags from countless worlds hung on the walls. Earth's flag was there too, small and new compared to the others. Ho found his seat. It was marked with Earth's symbol, a blue circle with green continents. He sat down and placed his data pad on the table. "The human sits at the adult table," a deep voice boomed across the hall. "How amusing." Everyone turned. Through the main entrance came the delegation. They were tall beings, nearly 8 feet high, with purple skin and eyes like liquid gold. They wore armor that gleamed like silver fire. At their front walked Princess. She was magnificent and terrifying at the same time. Her armor was decorated with symbols of her victories. 47 marks, one for each world her armies had conquered. Her long white hair flowed behind her like a cape. She looked at the gathered aliens with eyes full of pride and power. The princess walked slowly around the table, looking at each delegate. When she reached Ho, she stopped. "You sit in my seat, human," she said. Ho looked up at her calmly. "This seat is marked for Earth, Your Highness. Your seat is there." He pointed to a chair 3 places down, marked with the symbol. The room went silent. Everyone stared. No one spoke to Princess like that. Her golden eyes narrowed. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes," Ho said. "Princess of the Empire, daughter of Emperor, commander of the 3rd Fleet." "Then you should know to move when I tell you to move." Ho stayed seated. "With respect, Princess, all seats at this table are equal. That is the law of the council." His face twisted with anger. She leaned down, her face close to his. "Listen to me, soft. Your people are children playing in the stars. You have been in space for less than a century. My empire has ruled for 10,000 years. We have forgotten more about war than your species will ever know." "Perhaps," Ho said quietly, "but that doesn't change the seating arrangement." The princess laughed. It was not a happy sound. She stood up straight and looked around the room. "Look at this human, so brave with words. Tell me, little man, has your world ever known true combat? Have your people ever faced an enemy that wanted to erase you from existence?" Ho said nothing. His face remained calm. "I thought not," continued. "You Earth people live on one world. One, you have never conquered, never expanded, never proved your strength. You are soft, weak. You probably have not even fought each other." Behind Ho's hand tightened on her data pad, but she stayed silent. "Your silence proves my point," the princess said. She turned to address the whole room. "This is why humanity should not have a voice in this council. They are too weak to understand power, too gentle to make hard decisions. They will only slow us down." Ambassador Park, the senior Earth diplomat, stood up from his seat. He was an older man with gray hair. "Your Highness, please. We came here for peace talks, not insults." Ignored him. She kept her golden eyes on Ho. "I have an idea. In 3 days the war games begin. A competition where civilizations prove their worth through trials of combat and strategy. I challenge Earth to send a champion." The room erupted in whispers. The war games were legendary. They happened once every 10 years. Warriors from different worlds competed in brutal tests. Many did not survive. "If your champion wins," said with a cruel smile, "I will personally support Earth's petition for a permanent council seat. But when your champion loses, Earth will withdraw from the council for the next century. Do you accept?" Park looked panicked. "We need time to discuss." "I accept," Ho said. Everyone stared at him. His face went pale. "What?" Park gasped. Ho stood up slowly. He was not tall, barely 6 feet. Next to, he looked small, but something in the way he moved made the room go quiet. "I accept your challenge, Princess," he said clearly. "I will represent Earth in the war games." Smile grew wider. "Wonderful, this will be entertaining. Tell me, human, what is your name?" "Ho." "Well, Ho, I look forward to watching you fail. My champion will break you like a toy." She leaned close again. "And when you are lying in the dirt, defeated and humiliated, remember this moment. Remember that you were too proud to know your place." She turned and walked away. Her guards followed. Their heavy boots echoed through the hall. When they were gone, the room exploded with noise. Everyone talked at once. Park rushed to Ho. "What have you done? Do you know what the war games are? People die in those trials. We need professional soldiers, not diplomats." "It will be fine," Ho said softly. "Fine, fine." The ambassador looked like he might faint. "That woman is a trained killer. Her champions are the deadliest warriors in the galaxy. And you're just a—" "Sir," interrupted gently. She looked at Park with steady eyes. "Trust him." The old man looked between them, confused and frightened. Finally, he walked away, shaking his head. When they were alone, stepped closer to Ho. She spoke in a whisper that no alien ear could hear. "Should I send word home, Captain?" It was the first time she had used his military rank in years. Ho's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. They became colder, harder, like steel. "Not yet," he said quietly. "Let's keep that quiet a little longer." Nodded, she understood. The galaxy thought Ho was just a simple diplomat. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know who he really was. And that was exactly how he wanted it. Outside the station, stood on her flagship's bridge, looking at the stars. General, her military advisor, stood beside her. "That was almost too easy, Your Highness," he said. "The human accepted without even thinking." "Fools often do," replied. "In 3 days, we will show the galaxy that humanity is not ready to sit with the great powers. They will learn their place." She smiled, already imagining her victory. But in the darkness of space, the stars offered no comment. They had seen empires rise and fall for billions of years. They knew that pride often came before a terrible surprise. The war games would begin in 3 days, and nothing would be as anyone expected. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Earth had accepted the challenge. A human would compete in the war games against champions. Most aliens thought it was a joke. Some thought it was suicide. In Earth's embassy on the station, sat alone in a small room. She stared at her data pad, reading through files that were marked with the highest security level. Files that most people in the galaxy would never see. Files about Ho. The door opened. Ambassador Park entered, looking tired and angry. "Where is he?" the old man demanded. "Training room 7, answered without looking up. "I need to talk to him. We need to withdraw from this insanity. I've been contacted by 5 other ambassadors. They all think we've gone mad. They are warriors. We are scientists and explorers. This is not a fight we can win." Finally looked up. "Sir, do you know anything about the Outer Colony Wars?" Park blinked, confused by the sudden change of topic. "What? The Civil War? That was 40 years ago, before we joined the galactic community. Why does that matter?" "It matters very much," said quietly. She turned her data pad around so he could see the screen. The ambassador leaned forward. He saw a photograph of a young soldier, maybe 25 years old. The soldier wore combat armor covered in dust and blood. Behind him, a colony burned. His eyes looked old despite his young face. "Who is this?" Park asked. "Captain Ho said, 15 years ago." The old man's eyes went wide. "No, that can't be. Ho is a diplomat. He's been with the diplomatic corps for 12 years. He was a soldier for 10 years before that," explained. "One of the best Earth has ever produced." She swiped the screen. More images appeared, battle after battle, victory after impossible victory. "The Outer Colony Wars started when the Mars colonies rebelled," continued. "They had better weapons, more ships, and 3 times the soldiers. Earth was losing. Millions died. Then someone in military command had an idea. They took the best soldiers from every branch and created a special unit. 200 soldiers, elite fighters who could do the impossible." She swiped again. A group photo appeared. 200 men and women in black armor standing together. In the front row, she pointed to a young man. Ho was one of them. He was a lieutenant then. His sister, One, was also in the unit. Park sat down slowly, staring at the images. "The war got worse," said. Her voice was soft, like she was telling a ghost story. "The rebel colonies formed an alliance. 50,000 soldiers. They had weapons that could crack a planet's crust. They were going to attack Titan, Saturn's moon, where millions of civilians lived." "I remember," Park whispered. "The siege of Titan. It lasted 6 months. So many people died." "Only 200 soldiers defended Titan," said. "Captain Ho's unit. 200 against 50,000. The ambassador looked at her. "That's impossible. No force that small could win against those odds." "They didn't win by fighting fairly," explained. "Ho took command after his superior officers died in the first week. He changed tactics. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, he used the environment. Titan has methane lakes and nitrogen geysers. He turned the moon itself into a weapon." She pulled up tactical maps. They showed troop movements, ambush points, supply line attacks. For 6 months, the rebels couldn't advance. Every time they pushed forward, Ho's soldiers hit them from a new direction. The rebels had better weapons, but Ho understood the terrain. He knew how his enemy thought. He predicted their every move. "What happened?" Park asked, though he already knew the answer. "The rebels gave up. 50,000 soldiers surrendered to 200. It was the turning point of the war. After Titan, the colonies negotiated peace. Ho became a legend. Soldiers called him the ghost of Titan because he seemed to appear and disappear like smoke." Swipe to another image. It showed medals, honors, awards. "He could have become a general," she said. "Could have commanded armies, but he did something else. His sister One died during the siege. She was shot protecting civilians. Ho saw what war really costs, so when the fighting ended, he volunteered for the diplomatic corps." "He chose to become a diplomat," Park said in disbelief. "He said that winning battles is easy compared to preventing them," explained. "For 12 years, he's worked to keep Earth peaceful. He believes that talking is harder than fighting, but more important." The ambassador stared at the photographs for a long time. Finally, he looked at. "Why didn't anyone tell me this?" "His record is classified," said. "After the war, the government decided to keep his identity secret. They didn't want other nations to know too much about Earth's military capabilities, and Ho wanted it that way. He wanted to start fresh, to be seen as a peacemaker, not a warrior." "But now he's going to fight again," Park said. "Only because he has to," replied. The princess forced his hand. "If Earth backs down, we lose respect. If we send someone else and they lose, we still lose respect. But if Ho competes, we have a chance." Park stood up slowly. He looked at the door, then back at. "Who else knows about this?" "On the station, just me and him. Back on Earth, the military command knows. They're watching closely." The old ambassador walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned back. "Does he think he can win?" Smiled slightly. "Sir, Captain Ho once held a moon against an army, 3 trials in the war games. He's faced worse odds before breakfast." Across the station, in an empty training room, Ho moved through combat forms. His movements were smooth and precise, like a dance. Each punch, each kick, each block flowed into the next. Sweat covered his face, but his breathing stayed steady. He wore a simple training outfit. Without the diplomatic clothes, his body told a different story. Scars crossed his arms and chest, old wounds from a lifetime ago, wounds that most diplomats would never have. A screen on the wall showed information about the war games. The first trial was single combat. The second was tactical command of a fleet simulation. The third was survival in hostile terrain. Each trial would push competitors to their absolute limit. Ho stopped moving. He stood in the center of the room, breathing slowly. He closed his eyes and remembered. He remembered Titan, the cold, the fear, the sound of his sister's last words as she died in his arms. "Make it mean something," she had said. "Make sure we weren't fighting for nothing." He had promised her that day. Promised that if he survived, he would work for peace. That he would use his skills to prevent wars, not fight them. But now war had found him again. Not the same kind of war, but war nonetheless. "I tried one," he whispered to the empty room. "I tried to walk a different path." He opened his eyes. They were hard now, determined. "But if they want to see what humans can do, I'll show them." He removed his training shirt. In the mirror, he saw all the scars. Each one was a memory. Each one was a lesson learned in blood and fire. Princess thought Earth was weak because they had been peaceful. She thought gentleness meant inability to fight. She was wrong. Earth had chosen peace because they knew what violence truly cost. They had fought themselves almost to extinction and learned from it. Ho picked up his shirt and put it back on, covering the scars. He would return to being the quiet diplomat. But in 3 days, the galaxy would see something else. In 3 days, the ghost of Titan would walk again. On the flagship, Princess reviewed files about her opponent. There was very little information. Ho, age 42, occupation diplomat, no military record, no combat training listed, no achievements beyond peaceful negotiations. "This is their champion," she said with disgust, "a man who has never held a weapon." General stood beside her. "Perhaps they have no one better, Your Highness. Earth is a young civilization." "Or perhaps they're smarter than we think," said another voice. Both turned. An older stood in the doorway. He wore armor marked with ancient symbols. His name was Commander, and he would be champion in the first trial. "Explain," demanded. Walked forward slowly. "I have fought many species, Your Highness. Humans are new to the galaxy, yes, but they survived on a planet that tried to kill them for millions of years. Predators, diseases, disasters. They have been fighting since before they had metal or fire." So said. "So I will not underestimate this," Ho replied. "A species does not reach the stars by being weak, and a man does not accept a challenge like this unless he has a reason to be confident." The princess laughed. "You worry too much, old friend. Look at him." She pointed at Ho's photograph on the screen. "He looks like a clerk, a paper pusher." "Perhaps," said, "we will see in 3 days." He left the room, turned back to the screen, staring at the human's calm face. "In 3 days," she said softly, "the galaxy will see that humanity has no place among the great powers." But deep in her mind, a small doubt whispered, why did the human look so calm? Why did his eyes seem so cold? She pushed the thought away. She was princess. She had never been defeated. This would be just another victory. The countdown began. 3 days until the War Games. 3 days until the galaxy would learn the truth about Earth and its quiet diplomat. 3 days until everything changed. The arena was enormous. It could hold 100,000 spectators, and every seat was filled. Beings from across the galaxy had come to watch the War Games. The air hummed with excitement and bloodlust. This was entertainment, but it was also politics. Civilizations proved their strength here. Reputations were made or destroyed in this place. At one end of the arena stood Commander. He was massive, 9 feet tall, covered in muscle and purple skin. His armor gleamed like liquid metal. In his hands, he held 2 energy blades that crackled with blue fire. He had fought in the War Games twice before. He had never lost. At the other end stood Ho. He looked tiny compared to. He wore light armor, just enough to protect his vital organs. In his hands, he held a simple plasma staff, a weapon used for training. Many in the crowd laughed when they saw him. "Is this a joke?" someone shouted. "The human will die in seconds," another voice said. In the royal box high above the arena, Princess sat on a throne of silver. Around her sat ambassadors and leaders from dozens of worlds. She smiled, confident and cruel. "Let us begin," she announced. Her voice boomed through speakers across the arena. "The first trial of the War Games, single combat. The rules are simple: fight until one competitor cannot continue. Death is permitted, surrender is permitted, cowardice is not." The crowd roared with approval. "Begin," shouted. Moved immediately. For something so large, he was incredibly fast. He crossed half the arena in 3 seconds, his energy blades swinging in deadly arcs. The crowd gasped at his speed. Ho didn't run. He didn't attack. He simply stepped aside. The energy blade passed so close to his face that it singed his hair, but it didn't touch him. Spun and attacked again. Again Ho dodged. The warrior's blade came down like lightning. Ho wasn't where it landed. For 3 full minutes this continued, attacked with increasing fury. His blades moved so fast they became blurs of blue light, and every time Ho moved just enough to avoid them. He didn't look scared. He didn't look worried. He looked focused. The crowd grew confused. Why wasn't the human fighting back? Why was he just running away? But watching from the Earth delegation section understood. She had seen this before. Ho wasn't running. He was learning. Each dodge taught him something about timing. Each near-miss revealed a pattern. Was skilled, yes, but he fought like all warriors fought. Power and aggression. Overwhelming force. They had been winning for so long that they forgot not everyone would fight the same way. Began to breathe heavily. His attacks grew wider, less controlled. Frustration made him sloppy. Then Ho moved. It happened so fast that most people missed it. One moment Ho was dodging. The next his staff struck his wrist. The energy blade flew from the warrior's hand. Before could react, Ho spun, his staff hitting the knee joint. Stumbled. 17 seconds. That's how long it took. In 17 seconds, Ho disarmed completely, struck his pressure points, and swept his legs out from under him. The massive warrior crashed to the ground. Ho's staff pressed against his throat. The arena was silent. No one could believe what they had just seen. "Yield," Ho said quietly. Stared up at him with wide eyes. Then slowly he nodded. "I yield." Ho stepped back and offered his hand. Took it, and the human helped the warrior stand. The crowd erupted. Some cheered, some booed, some sat in shocked silence. In the royal box, smile was gone. Her golden eyes blazed with anger. The second trial took place in a different arena. This one was filled with holographic displays. Each competitor would command a virtual fleet in a combat simulation. The test measured tactical thinking and strategic command. Princess went first. She took the command chair with confidence. The simulation began. Her fleet faced an enemy 3 times her size. She used traditional tactics, aggressive, direct. She sent her strongest ships straight at the enemy's center, breaking their formation. Then her flanking forces swept in from both sides. It was brutal and effective. She won in 47 minutes with 60% of her fleet surviving. The crowd applauded. It was an impressive performance. Most competitors would not do better. Then it was Ho's turn. He sat in the command chair and studied the displays. The same scenario. His fleet was small. The enemy was large. Most commanders would use force, but Ho saw something else. He saw supply lines, communication patterns, weak points in the enemy's organization. He gave his orders. His fleet didn't attack. Instead, they spread out, moving to specific positions around the enemy. Then they waited. "What is he doing?" someone in the crowd asked. "He's not fighting," another voice said. "He's just sitting there." But Ho was fighting, just not the way they expected. His ships began sending false communications. They pretended to be enemy vessels requesting supplies and reinforcements. They created confusion in the enemy's command structure. While the enemy was distracted, Ho's fleet destroyed their supply ships. Then he waited again. The enemy fleet grew hungry. Ships began to power down to save energy. Their formation broke apart as vessels searched for supplies. Internal arguments started. The enemy began fighting itself over the remaining resources. Finally, after 92 minutes, the enemy commander sent a message to Ho's flagship. "We surrender." Ho had won without firing a single shot. His entire fleet survived. The arena was silent again. This was not how warfare worked. This was not honorable combat. This was something else, something most of them had never seen. In the observation area, military officers watched with disturbed expressions. General turned to his advisors. "Analyze what he just did," he ordered. "I want to know how he achieved that." One of his officers replied slowly, "Sir, he used psychological warfare. He attacked their morale and supply chain. It's not a style we've encountered before." "It's not warfare," another officer said with disgust. "It's trickery." "It's victory," said quietly, "and that's what matters." Ho stood from the command chair and walked out of the arena. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some applauded his intelligence. Others booed what they saw as dishonorable tactics. Met him in the corridor outside. "That was brilliant, sir," she said. Ho shook his head slightly. "It was necessary. I showed them that humans don't think like they do. That will make them worried." "The princess looks angry." "Good," Ho said. "Angry people make mistakes." Later that evening, Princess found Ho in one of the station's observation decks. He stood alone, looking out at the stars. "That was not combat," she said, her voice tight with anger. "What you did in the simulation was not honorable." Ho turned to face her. "Does honor matter more than survival?" "Honor is everything," insisted. "A warrior who fights without honor is no warrior at all." "I'm not a warrior," Ho said calmly. "I'm a soldier. There's a difference." "Explain." Ho looked back at the stars. "Warriors fight for glory. Soldiers fight to go home. Warriors seek honorable death. Soldiers seek to prevent death. Your empire has been strong for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to truly struggle." Stepped closer, her eyes flashing. "You know nothing about struggle. Your people have lived on one world, safe and protected. We have conquered 47 civilizations. We have faced extinction and survived." "Have you?" Ho asked. "Or have you simply been the ones causing extinction?" The princess's hand moved to her weapon, but she didn't draw it. "Careful, human. You may have won 2 trials, but there is still one more, and I will compete in that one myself." "I look forward to it," Ho said. Studied his face. There was something about this human that bothered her, his calmness, his confidence. He should be afraid, but he wasn't. He should be celebrating his victories, but instead he seemed sad. "Who are you really?" she demanded. "You're not just a diplomat. Diplomats don't fight like you do." Ho met her eyes. I'm someone who learned that strength without wisdom leads only to ruin. Your empire is strong, princess. Perhaps the strongest in the galaxy, but strength isn't enough. Strength is everything, she said. Is it? Ho asked. Then why are you here on a peace station, negotiating with civilizations you could easily destroy? If strength is everything, why talk at all? Had no answer. She stared at him for a long moment, then turned and walked away. Alone on the observation deck, Ho watched her go. He felt tired, old. He had spent 12 years trying to escape his past, trying to be something other than a soldier. But the past had found him anyway. One more trial, he whispered to himself, then this will be over. But deep down, he knew it wouldn't be over. Win or lose, things had changed. The galaxy had seen what humans could do. Earth would never be dismissed as weak again. Whether that was good or bad remained to be seen. In her quarters sat alone. She replayed recordings of Ho's fights. She watched how he moved, how he thought. She had fought hundreds of opponents. She knew warriors, she knew killers. Ho was both and something more. What are you hiding? She asked the image on the screen. The human's face remained calm, revealing nothing. Tomorrow would be the third trial, the survival test, just her and him alone on a hostile world. No tricks, no tactics, just pure survival skill. She would find out who he really was. She would push him until he broke or revealed his true self. The countdown continued. One day until the final trial. One day until everything would be decided. The galaxy watched and waited. Some hoped the human would win. Others wanted to see him fail. But everyone wanted to know the same thing. Who was Ho, and what would happen when the mask finally came off? The planet was called Nine, and it was designed to kill. Volcanic activity made the ground shake constantly. The atmosphere was toxic, requiring breathing masks. Temperature swings went from freezing to boiling within hours. Predators lurked in every shadow, creatures that had evolved to survive in this hellish place. 2 transport ships flew through the orange sky. One carried Princess to the northern drop point. The other carried Ho to the south. They would be dropped on opposite sides of the planet's deadliest region. The extraction point was at the polar zone, 200 miles away. The first to arrive would win. 72 hours, that's all they had. In his transport, Ho checked his equipment. A breathing mask, a thermal suit that could adjust to temperature changes, a knife, a basic survival kit with water tablets, a fire starter, and medical supplies. That was all the rules allowed. Approaching drop point, the pilot announced. May your God go with you, human. Thank you, Ho said. The door opened. Wind howled into the ship. Below, Ho saw a landscape of black rock and rivers of red lava. It looked like hell. He jumped. The fall lasted 10 seconds. His suit's small thrusters slowed him just before impact. He landed hard, rolled, and came up ready. The transport flew away immediately. Ho was alone. He looked around, assessing his situation. To the north, he could see volcanic mountains spewing ash into the sky. To the east, a forest of twisted black trees. To the west, what looked like a dried ocean bed. South led deeper into the volcanic region. North was the way to go, but taking the direct route would mean climbing through active volcanic zones, dangerous but fast. Ho chose east toward the forest. On the other side of the planet made a different choice. She headed north immediately, straight into the volcanic region. She was strong, she was fast, she would power through any obstacle. She ran across the black rock, her body adapted to harsh conditions. She had trained for this. She had studied recordings of previous survival trials. She knew what to expect. A creature emerged from a crack in the ground. It looked like a centipede made of stone and fire, 20 feet long with mandibles that dripped acid. Drew her blade and charged at it without hesitation. The fight was brutal and quick. She was faster than the creature expected. Her blade cut through its armor plating. Within 2 minutes, the creature was dead, and she continued north. This was what she knew: direct confrontation, overwhelming force. Meanwhile, Ho reached the Black Forest. The trees were strange, made of a material that was half plant and half stone. They grew in twisted shapes, blocking out what little sunlight penetrated the orange clouds. He moved carefully, watching for threats. His training had taught him patience. Rushing got people killed. He found a stream of relatively clean water and refilled his supplies. Then he spotted tracks in the soft earth. Large tracks, clawed, probably a predator. He studied them, learning the creature's gait and size. Instead of avoiding the tracks, he followed them. After an hour, he found the creature's den. A massive cat-like beast with 6 legs and scales instead of fur. It was sleeping. Ho didn't kill it. Instead, he watched it. He saw how it breathed, where it preferred to rest, what direction it faced. This creature had lived here its whole life. It knew things about surviving on this planet that Ho didn't. When the creature woke and left its den to hunt, Ho followed at a safe distance. The beast led him around dangerous areas. It avoided certain plants that released toxic spores. It stayed away from sinkholes hidden under thin layers of rock. Ho was learning from the planet's own predators. The first night fell. Temperature dropped 40 degrees in an hour, found a cave and made camp. She started a fire and ate from her rations. She was making good time. At this pace, she would reach the extraction point in 2 days. She thought about the human. Was he even alive? The forest region was full of predators. Maybe one had already killed him. Maybe she would win by default. Part of her hoped he was still alive. She wanted to defeat him properly, to prove that strength was superior to human tricks. Ho spent the night in a tree. The 6-legged predator couldn't climb, and the branches were strong enough to hold his weight. He slept in short intervals, always alert, always listening. Dawn came. The temperature rose quickly. Within 2 hours, it was scorching hot. Ho's thermal suit adjusted, but it was still uncomfortable. He continued north, following the paths the local predators used. By midday of the second day, he had crossed the forest and reached the volcanic region. Here, the real challenge began. Was already deep into the volcanic zone. She had faced 3 more predators and survived 2 lava flows. Her suit was damaged. She had burns on her arms, but she pushed forward with determination. She reached a narrow canyon. The walls rose hundreds of feet on both sides. It was the fastest way north, but it was also dangerous. One earthquake could cause a rock slide. She entered anyway. Speed was more important than caution. Halfway through the canyon, she heard a sound, a deep, rumbling growl that made the ground vibrate. She turned and saw it emerging from a cave in the canyon wall. A volcano. The creature was massive, 50 feet long, covered in armor made of cooled lava. It had no eyes because it didn't need them. It sensed heat and vibration. In this environment, it was the apex predator. Drew her blade. She could do this. She was princess. She had never been defeated. The attacked. It was faster than something that size should be. Its tail whipped around, smashing into the canyon wall. Rocks fell, dodged and slashed at its side. Her blade sparked against its armor but didn't penetrate. The fight lasted 20 minutes, used every technique she knew. She was strong, skilled, and brave, but there was a creature built for this place. It was literally made of the planet itself. This tail caught her across the chest. She flew backward and slammed into the canyon wall. Her armor cracked, ribs broke. She fell to the ground, gasping for air. The moved closer. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of stone-grinding teeth. Then a small object flew through the air and struck the canyon wall above an explosion. Not large, but enough. The wall cracked and rocks began to fall. That turned its attention to the new threat. Ho stood at the canyon entrance. He had followed its trail, knowing the direct route would be dangerous. "Get up," he shouted to the princess. "Move." Tried to stand, but her leg wouldn't support her weight. She had broken something. She was trapped. Ho ran toward her, roared and charged at him. He threw two more explosive charges, not at the creature but at the canyon walls. More rocks fell. The slowed, confused by the falling debris. Ho reached. Without asking, he grabbed her and pulled her arm over his shoulder, taking her weight. "What are you doing?" she gasped. "Saving your life," he said. "Now move." They stumbled toward the canyon exit. Behind them, the recovered and gave chase. Ho triggered his last explosive charge. This one was planted at a critical stress point in the canyon wall. The explosion caused a chain reaction. The entire canyon wall collapsed, tons of rock falling on the creature's roar was cut off as it was buried. Ho and Barely made it out. They collapsed on the ground outside the canyon, breathing hard. For a long moment, neither spoke. The princess stared at the human who had just saved her life, the human who should have left her to die and won the competition easily. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why did you save me?" Ho sat up and checked her injuries. Broken ribs, possibly a cracked shoulder, severe bruising, painful but not fatal. "Because this isn't about winning," he said. "It's about showing that humanity values life, even the life of someone who challenged us, even the life of someone who insulted us." Looked at him with new eyes. She had called him weak. She had said humans were soft, but this man had just risked everything to save his enemy. That wasn't weakness. That was something else, something she didn't fully understand. "I can't walk," she admitted. "My leg is broken." Ho looked at the sky. They still had 30 hours to reach extraction. The distance was manageable for one person. For two, with one injured, it would be difficult. "Then I'll carry you," he said simply. "Why?" she asked again. "If you leave me here, you win. Earth gets everything you wanted." Ho helped her sit up. He began treating her injuries with supplies from his medical kit. "My sister died in a war," he said quietly. "She died protecting civilians, people she didn't know, people who couldn't defend themselves. Before she died, she told me to make it mean something, to make sure we weren't fighting for nothing." He looked at directly. "If I leave you here to die, what does that make me? Just another person who chooses victory over values. My planet spent 100 years fighting itself. We almost destroyed everything. We learned that survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about being wise enough to know when to fight and when to show mercy." Was silent. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever chosen honor over victory. "You're strange," she said finally. "Your species is strange." "Maybe," Ho agreed. He finished bandaging her ribs. "Can you stand with support?" She tried. With his help, she could manage a slow walk. They began moving north together. The pace was slow. Tried not to show pain, but every step hurt. Ho adjusted his speed to match hers, never complaining, never suggesting they move faster. "Tell me about the war," said as they walked. "The war where your sister died." So Ho told her about the colonies, about the fighting, about holding Titan against impossible odds, about learning that winning battles means nothing if you lose yourself in the process. Listened. For the first time in her life, she really listened to someone from another species, not as a superior to an inferior, but as one person to another. As night fell on the second day, they made camp. They were close to the extraction point now. Another 6 hours of travel would get them there. "We'll arrive together," Ho said. "By the rules, that makes it a tie." "You reach me first," pointed out. "You could claim victory." "I could," Ho agreed. "But I won't. This was never about defeating you, princess. It was about showing what humanity represents." Looked at the stars above them. Her empire controlled hundreds of worlds. They had power beyond measure. But sitting here, injured and saved by an enemy, she realized something. Power wasn't the same as strength, and strength wasn't the same as wisdom. "I was wrong about your species," she said quietly. I thought you were weak because you chose peace. I see now that choosing peace requires more courage than choosing war." Ho smiled slightly. "That's the first step toward real wisdom, princess." They rested through the night, taking turns keeping watch. And for the first time since the competition began, neither of them was thinking about winning or losing. They were thinking about what came after. The extraction ship descended through the orange clouds exactly on schedule. Its sensors detected 2 heat signatures at the landing zone, both alive, both waiting. Ho and stood together as the ship landed. Her arm was around his shoulder for support. His face showed exhaustion, but his eyes remained alert. They had made it. The ship's door opened. Medical teams rushed out, heading straight for the princess. News crews followed, cameras recording everything. This was the moment the galaxy had been waiting for. "Princess," a reporter shouted, "what happened? Did you win?" The medical team tried to take her from Ho, but she held up her hand, stopping them. "Wait," she said. Her voice was weak but clear. She looked at all the cameras, knowing billions watched across the stars. "I need to say something." The crowd of reporters pressed closer. In orbit above the planet, every ship's crew watched their screens. On the Galactic Council station, ambassadors gathered in the observation halls. Even on distant Earth, millions of humans stayed awake to see the outcome. Stood as straight as her injuries allowed, she looked directly at the cameras. "I challenged Earth because I believed humans were weak," she said. "I thought their preference for peace meant they could not fight. I was wrong." Murmurs ran through the crowd. This was not what anyone expected to hear. Ho won all 3 trials, continued. "In combat, he defeated my champion. In tactics, he achieved victory without violence. And in survival, he reached the extraction point before me." She paused, taking a painful breath. "But more importantly, when he found me injured and helpless, he chose to save my life instead of claiming easy victory. He carried me for miles through hostile terrain. He gave up certain success to show mercy to his enemy." The reporters were silent now, hanging on every word. "This is not weakness," said. "This is strength of a kind my people have forgotten. Humanity deserves their place in the Galactic Council. They deserve respect, and I personally apologize for my arrogance." She turned to Ho, and in front of the entire galaxy, she bowed, a princess bowing to a human. The reporters exploded with questions. The medical team finally insisted on taking to the ship. As they carried her away, she looked back at Ho one last time. "Thank you," she mouthed silently. He nodded, no words needed. Back on the council station, chaos reigned. The recordings of the trials had spread across every network. Everyone had watched Ho's performance, his combat skills, his tactical genius, his mercy toward a fallen enemy. Ambassador Park found himself surrounded by other ambassadors, all wanting to speak with Earth's delegation. "Who is this Ho?" demanded the ambassador from Rigel 5. "Such skills are not developed overnight." "Is he military?" asked another. "Does Earth have more like him?" Park smiled carefully. "Mr. is a diplomat. He simply rose to the challenge when asked." The ambassadors didn't look convinced, but they couldn't press further. Earth's internal military records were classified. What they didn't know was that back on Earth, military command was having urgent meetings. The ghost of Titan had been revealed to the galaxy, even if they didn't know his legend. Other civilizations would now take humanity seriously. That changed everything. In the medical bay, doctors worked on injuries. Her father, Emperor, had arrived on the station and stood beside her bed. He was an imposing figure, even larger than his daughter, with eyes that had seen 1,000 battles. "You embarrassed us," he said quietly. "You lost to a human." "No, father," replied. "I learned from a human there's a difference." The Emperor studied his daughter's face. She looked different somehow, less arrogant, more thoughtful. "Explain," he commanded. So she told him everything, about Ho's skills, about the survival test, about his choice to save her rather than win. He gave up victory for principle, she said. When was the last time anyone in our empire did that? Emperor was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. The humans defeated the Empire in the war games. This will not be forgotten across the galaxy. Good, said. Let it not be forgotten. Let it remind us that there are different kinds of strength. Her father looked surprised. You've changed. Yes, she agreed, I have. 3 days later, the Galactic Council held a formal session. Every seat was filled. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Ho sat in Earth's seat, wearing his simple gray suit again. He looked like the diplomat he had been before the games, but everyone in the room now knew what lay beneath that quiet exterior. The council president, an ancient being from a species so old their name was unpronounceable in most languages, called the session to order. We are here to discuss the results of the war games, the president said, and to decide on Earth's petition for a permanent council seat. Before anyone could speak, Princess entered the chamber. She walked slowly, still healing, but she refused assistance. She went to the center of the room where all could see her. I invoke the right of testimony, she announced. The council president nodded. Speak, Princess of. 3 weeks ago, I challenged Earth because I believed they were unworthy of standing among the great civilizations, said. Her voice echoed in the chamber. I believed might made right. I believed that peaceful species were weak species. She looked around at all the assembled ambassadors. I was a fool. The human Ho showed me that true strength comes from wisdom, that power without restraint is just violence, that choosing peace when you could choose war requires far more courage. She turned to face her father, who sat in the delegation. The Empire has conquered 47 worlds. We rule through force, but I ask you all, what have we built? What have we created? We take and call it strength, but humanity, they chose a different path. Murmurs ran through the chamber. This was unprecedented. A princess criticizing her own empire in front of the entire council. I propose something new, continued. The empire will establish a cultural exchange with Earth, not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals. We will learn from them and they will learn from us. The room erupted in discussion. Emperor stood slowly, every eye turned to him. My daughter speaks with wisdom I did not know she possessed, he said. His deep voice silenced the room. The Empire accepts her proposal. We will open our academies to human students. We will share our knowledge. And in return, perhaps we will learn what we have forgotten in our centuries of conquest. He looked directly at Ho. The human showed mercy to my daughter when he could have let her die. For this, the Empire is in debt to Earth. We support their petition for a permanent council seat. The chamber exploded with voices. Other ambassadors stood, some agreeing, some protesting. The debate lasted for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. When the most powerful military empire in the galaxy supported Earth, others followed. By the end of the day, Earth had its permanent council seat. Humanity was now officially recognized as a galactic power. That evening, Ho found himself on the same observation deck where he had confronted days before. He stood looking at the stars, feeling tired but satisfied. Quite a few days, a voice said behind him. He turned, approached slowly, still moving carefully due to her injuries. Princess, he said, you should be resting. I wanted to thank you properly, she said, away from the cameras and politics. They stood together, looking at the stars. You changed everything, said quietly. Not just for Earth, for my empire too. My father is talking about reform, about changing how we interact with other civilizations, because of what you showed me. I didn't do it alone, Ho said. You made the choice to listen. That's harder than people think. Will you teach us? She asked suddenly. Not just in the cultural exchange, but really teach us. Help us become something better than conquerors. Ho looked at her. He saw genuine sincerity in her golden eyes. "Only if you're truly willing to learn," he said. "I am," she promised. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, then spoke again. "Can I ask you something? Who were you really before you became a diplomat?" Ho smiled slightly. "Someone who learned that winning wars is easy compared to building peace. Someone who saw too many people die for stupid reasons. Someone who wanted to make sure his sister's death meant something." "Your sister would be proud," said softly. "I hope so," Ho replied. Behind them appeared in the doorway. She saw them standing together and smiled. The ghost of Titan and the warrior princess, enemies who had become something else, something better. "Sir called. Ambassador Park wants to see you. We have our first council vote tomorrow." "I'll be right there," Ho said. As Left offered her hand to Ho, he took it, not as enemies, not even as allies, but as two people who had learned something important. "To new beginnings," she said. "To new beginnings," he agreed. The next day, Earth cast its first vote in the Galactic Council. It was a small vote about trade regulations, nothing dramatic, but the symbolism was enormous. Humanity had arrived, not through conquest, not through violence, but through courage, skill, and the wisdom to choose mercy over victory. In the Earth delegation section, Ambassador Park sat beside Ho. "What happens now?" the old man asked quietly. Ho thought for a moment. "Now comes the hard part. We have their respect. We need to keep it. That means being wise, being fair, being the civilization we want to be, not the one we could be." "Heavy responsibility," Park said. "Yes," Ho agreed, "but that's what we signed up for when we reached for the stars." Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, billions of beings watched humanity's first day as a council member, some with hope, some with suspicion, but all with attention. Earth was no longer the new kid, no longer dismissed or underestimated. They were players now, partners, a civilization to be reckoned with. And it had all started because one princess insulted one diplomat, never knowing who she had challenged. Ho looked around the council chamber, at all the different species working together despite their differences. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, but they were trying. That was what mattered, the effort, the attempt to build something better. He thought of one, his sister, dead these many years. He thought of all the soldiers who had died in Earth's civil war. He thought of all the lessons learned in blood and sacrifice. "We made it mean something," he whispered. "I promise, one, we made it all mean something." In the section, Princess watched the human delegation. She saw Ho sitting quietly, not seeking attention, just doing his work. So different from how she had lived her entire life. Her father sat beside her. "Do you still think the humans are weak?" he asked. Smiled. "I think they're the strongest species I've ever met, because they choose not to use all their strength. They hold back. They show restraint. And somehow that makes them more dangerous and more admirable than any warrior race." Emperor nodded slowly. "Perhaps we have been strong for so long that we forgot what strength truly means." "Perhaps," agreed. "But we can learn. The humans prove that any species can change. We just have to be brave enough to try." The council session continued. Votes were cast. Debates were held. The galaxy turned, indifferent to the drama of its inhabitants. But for those in that chamber, something fundamental had shifted. Humanity had shown that there were different paths to respect, different ways to be powerful, and in doing so, they had opened a door that could never be closed. The future was uncertain, as it always is, but for the first time in a long time it felt hopeful. And in the end, that was worth more than all the military victories in the universe. Years later, historians would look back on this moment. They would call it the turning point. The day when galactic civilization began to change from a hierarchy of conquest to a community of cooperation. But for Ho, sitting in that council chamber on that ordinary day, It was simply the beginning of a very long journey. A journey that started with an insult and ended with understanding. A journey that proved that the greatest weapon humanity possessed was not technology or violence, but the courage to show mercy even to those who showed them none. And as the session ended and delegates filed out, talking and debating, Ho caught's eye across the chamber. She nodded to him, he nodded back. No words needed, they both understood. The war was over, the real work was just beginning. And for the first time in his long career, Ho felt something he hadn't felt since before Titan. Hope.